Hello programmers, we're going to chat quickly about the idea of code tracing. We have looked at an example or two or three of these ideas of using variables, doing some calculations, resetting their values a bunch of times, and parsing through and figuring out line by line what this code is doing and tracing through the code as we go. This is the first example of doing this code tracing in a video. So when we're going to look at it today, we're going to look at how a debugger actually works on IntelliJ. Don't worry about understanding too much of what the debugger is doing behind the scenes, but this debugger is really helpful to help us think about what I should be thinking as I'm looking through this code line by line. So let's run it. So use our debugger. You should see a little button right next to the play button that is, it looks like a little bug. And so we're going to click on that to debug. And this will show up and nothing will really happen. And if I have my program like this, nothing happens at all whatsoever. So what I need to do, and this is possibly something you've already accidentally done, is you need to put a stop code in to say, hey, debugger, I want you to pause at this case and then actually go through the code line by line here. So this happens a lot of times when you accidentally click to play and click next to it. It doesn't do anything to your code. It doesn't prevent anything from happening. It's a helpful note for the debugger. So now I've put a stop in at the first line of code where I'm starting to set variable values for A, B, and C, so I can think about what each of them are as we go through this code line by line, so that I can answer that question of what are the values of A, B, and C at the end of this program. So now when I press the debugger, it tells me that I've got some arguments that I am dealing with, and it is highlighting that it is on the line that I've stopped it at, which is line 6 for right now. And then the button I'm going to use is the one that looks like a little arrow down, which means step into, which will step down to the next line of code. So when I do that, you'll notice it says, hey, I know, and I noticed that you had a variable A and you had a variable B. What you did on that line 6 is you set A to be 1 and B to also be 1. So in line in the code and down here in the debugger's console, you can see that we are keeping track of those variables' values. So now my next line of code says that A should be equal to A plus B. So right away my program reminds me, hey, this is your current value of A, this is your current value of B, so I can do that calculation. And it will do that calculation for me, and it will update that value of A, because we know that the 1 plus 1 was 2, so now our new value of A should be 2. And now your code is continuing to update you and remind you about what each variable is as we go. And notice up at the top, it is keeping track of the overall. So as we go through, now we have an integer C that's equal to A, and it says, hey, remember, A equals 2. So when I step down, it's going to say, yep, I've got a new variable that's called C that you made, and it should also be equal to 2 because A was equal to 2. And now I continue on to the next line. This one says C is equal to C plus 2, where our current value of C is 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4, and that is the calculation and the value that I should set into this variable C. So I will update my variable C, and C is now equal to 4. And that is continuing to update on the line where C was created or declared, as well as down here. And now we say that B is equal to C, so we're going to take whatever the value is that C has right now at this moment, and we are going to make B hold that value as well. So now B will also have a value of 4. And now it's trying to jump into this if block, and so we're testing this condition. If A is equal to B, right now our A is a value of 2, our B is a value of 4, as our code has told us in multiple places, or as the debugger has told us in multiple places. So that means we should not jump inside of this loop, and your computer does not. It skips over that if statement altogether and goes to check the next one. This one says if A is not equal to B, and we know that 2 is in fact not equal to 4, so we should jump inside of this if statement. And in this case now, from here, I want to set the value of C to be equal to the value of A. Currently A is 2, so now my value of C will also be 2. And finally, my last step is to set B to be equal to its value plus 1. So B was a value of 4, and when I step down one more line, B is a value of 5, and it has updated it as such. So we can see we have values of 2, 5, and 2. And that's how your debugger thinks through and steps through this program. So we're going to do a very similar version on paper so that you can think about the human version, because of course we are not infected. Alright, so the human version looks quite similar, but with a slight variation, and I'm going to write this one in by hand as if you were writing on your own piece of paper off to the side. So as soon as we're doing any kind of a question that wants me to keep track of the values of A, B, and C, I make myself a nice little text box off to the side, and I'm going to record values of A, values of B, and values of C as I go throughout this program. And then I'm going to try to color code to keep track of what I'm doing on each line. So when I jump into this first line right here, it says integer A is equal to 1, and integer B is also equal to 1. C still has no value, so I'm going to not set value yet. When I get down to this next line, it says that A is equal to A plus B, where my current value of A is 1, my current value of B is 1, so my new value for A is now going to be 2. Keep going. Now I have an integer C that's going to be equal to the value of A, where currently my value of A is 2. So now I'm going to set a value of C to also be equal to 2. Continuing on, now it says that C is equal to C plus 2, which is then 2 plus 2, so now my value of C should become 4. And finally, before we jump into those if blocks, now I want B to be equal to the value of C, where C is currently equal to 4, so B should also be equal to 4. So then I'm going to jump down into this first conditional check. Is 2 equal to 4? No, so we're going to skip this block entirely and jump down to here. And now we're going to think about the conditionals of the next conditional of this if statement. And now we want to say, is 2 not equal to 4? And we want to say yes. So we're going to jump down on in, and I'm going to use brown on this next line. Now we say that our C value is equal to the value of A, where currently our value of A is equal to 2. So C should also become equal to 2. And then finally, I need one more color. Yeah, let's use that. Finally, my last line says that B is equal to B plus 1, where my current value of B is 4, so I'm going to add 1 to it, and I get a value of 5. So that is me talking through and thinking through like a debugger, but keeping track of my variables off to the side like this, which is a little bit messier, I'm aware, yes, but it also allows me to trace back. So if I find an error somewhere along the way, I can work my way backwards to figure out where I went wrong, and I like that a lot. Having to write all this in is up to you. This is me thinking through those ideas, but it might be helpful when we're learning about code tracing for the first time. If you'll let me stop.